Hi, I'm Kristen from I'm Kristen Makes. I'm trying this again for about the 15th time. I've made several videos and some I deleted and did over. Of course, I was overly critical over every single one of them. But I did try this YouTube channel thing a couple of years ago, and I made my introductory video, and then I never really pursued it. I don't know why, but I've watched so many podcasts and often thought I'd really like to do that, partly for my own personal journal of the things that I enjoy doing and making, but just for myself. And of course, you know, if nobody watches, then I won't do it. But but I have recently come across, well, first I'll introduce myself and tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Kris, and my full name is Kristen, and I go by Kris mostly these days. My family all calls me Christy, but I go by, my dad always called me Kristen. I go by Kristen, Kris, or Christy. So, but you'll find me on I'm Kristen Makes. So that's my YouTube channel. And let's see, I am 64, almost 65. And my husband and I have been married for 45 years, and we have 3 grown kids and 3 nearly grown grandkids, all in their teens, 18, 17, and 16. So we have 2 older daughters and a son. So our daughters live pretty near. One lives here in town, and one just moved about 45 minutes away, but we have been involved in their everyday lives and all their sports and all their events since they were babies, and that's been a lot of fun. So I've been a maker and a quilter and sewist for probably I'll say 25 years. It was about the time that my kids were in high school that I started to learn to quilt and started taking classes all over town and really enjoyed it, and my love of sewing just took off from there. So I do make quilts. I've made several large quilts, but I'm not just a quilt maker. I really like to make, or large quilt maker. I really like to make small projects. I love to make seasonal runners and table toppers and things like that, and just, you know, lots of things, not just quilts, but I enjoy sewing, period. So anyway, back to a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Southern California. We've lived here in the city we're in now for almost all of our entire married lives. And so I feel like I grew up here in this town, but I was born and raised in Orange County, not too far from Disneyland, and moved a little bit inland shortly after we were married, and been here ever since. So we've watched our little town grow up into a huge bustling town, and kind of, you know, sometimes want to move to a quieter place, but we'll see about that. My husband will be retiring in the next year, and we're not sure what our plans will be. We just don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see what we wind up doing. This is more house and property than we really ever wanted to take care of, but yet we love it here too. So we're going to have to just wait and see what this next year or two brings for us. So I have also tried to upload the videos that I did take and had all kinds of trouble. I used iMovie. Obviously, I don't know how to use that. And my husband, who is not a YouTube, techie guy, he couldn't figure out how to upload a movie onto YouTube either. Although I know I've done it once 2 years ago, because I did an introduction video and I did upload that to YouTube. So there is a way, and I'm going to have to figure it out. I'm going to have to talk to some of my friends that YouTube and see what they suggest to do. Patty, that's you. So moving forward with my vlog or podcast, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go, but when I first started, I thought that I had to make one topic, and I didn't really want to be pigeonholed into one topic. Like, you've got your knitting videos, you've got your sewing videos, you've got your um, gardening videos, and I do all of those things, and I wanted to be able to talk about all of those things. So uh, one of the things that was really important to me to try was I'd really love to get my mom involved and video her a couple, or interview her, video her maybe once a month or so, and have her talk about family history and her story and her mother, my Nana's story, who passed away 10 years ago. And Nana was such a big, big part of all of our lives, but her memory and her stories end with us. And I don't want that to happen. I want there to be somewhere that my kids and grandkids can go, and great grandkids can go, to find out a little bit about their people. So my mom has done a little bit of searching in Utah. She's done a little bit of searching for some of our ancestors, and maybe, I know she knows more than I do, but maybe we can come up with some pictures and some things that tie all of that together. I had stumbled upon a video that I loved here recently called Penelope's Chinwag. And Penelope lives in the southeast of England, and she featured her mom on her videos, not every time, but once a month or so. And her mom told her story, and I got so invested in that, and I could not help but compare her mother's story to my grandmother's story. My grandmother was a little bit older, but I remember my grandmother telling me of the same things, some of the hardships that they went through, and how things were so different in those days, in those earlier days of their marriages, and what the world was like. For Penelope's mother, she lived through the Second World War and the bombing and all of that was going on, that was so terrifying, when so many people were sending their children to a safer place. And she had even planned to do that, but at the last minute just couldn't send her away. So that's my plan. I hope to be able to incorporate some of that into my video. And, just seasonally, I tend to do different things. I've been a knitter for about 10 years, and started, like most people do, with things like dishcloths and shawls and scarves. And then I got into sock knitting. I must have knit 100 pair of socks. I always had a pair of socks on the go. And then one day I just decided that I really wanted to learn how to knit sweaters. And I knit 8 sweaters in the time of span of 1 year, or a little bit over a year. And I loved the process of knitting sweaters, and I love the sweaters that I knit. But we don't live in a climate that you need to wear a sweater all the time. So unfortunately, those weren't very practical knits for me, but I loved knitting them. And I do wear them occasionally. I wear them up in the mountains, and I wear them on colder days. But mostly, I've worn the cowls and the scarves and the gloves and the socks and those things. So I haven't done a lot of knitting in the last year, and I'm looking forward to doing more this year. I had purchased a book where they featured Fair Isle socks, and I really love Fair Isle knitting, and I want to do those this year. So hopefully that's going to be in the plan. I crochet a little bit. This Afghan that you see behind that chair, a girlfriend of mine wanted to learn to crochet, and she wanted to make a blanket for her mother's 90th birthday. So we started about a year before she would gift her mom the blanket, and she decided on that pattern. It's called the Maybell square. So I made mine along with her, and it's just such a cheerful, pretty thing to have out. And I love knitting or crocheting Afghans. They're quick and fun to do. Crochet is a lot easier and quicker than knitting, and I like both. They're just you know, sometimes I'm in the mood to do one, and sometimes I'm in the mood to do another. So I enjoy both of those. This past year I got into a little bit of weaving, prompted by another vlog that I love. That's the Yarn Hoarder podcast, and Amber hosts that one, and it's done on a loom. Back when, you know, we were kids, we all had the little 7-inch loom that we made little, we call them pot holders, but they're really coasters. They're small. And these looms are 10-inch, and the cotton loops are much sturdier, much prettier. There's, you can get hand dyed, you can get wool, you can get all kinds of colors and do all kinds of creative designs and combinations. And so that's one of the things that I enjoyed doing recently, kind of a new craft. Another thing that I got a little interested in is art, and I'm not an artist at all. I can't even make a stick figure, but this is what I was doing, watercolor, and there's a lot of videos online that kind of walk you through, and a lot of it is in the brush that you use to get the right brush. And so I did invest in some brushes and some paints and watercolor paper, and I really enjoyed that. And I started doing a date. Well, I wasn't doing it daily, but I tried to, a journal in pictures. Draw your year, draw your day, and I was doing that. And then, you know, you just, like you do, you just kind of put it away and you forget about it. But I'd like to do that again, and I really enjoyed it, and it helps you remember what you did throughout the year too. So that's also on my list of things that I want to do and share. I'm not going to really share very many things or anything, but I'm sitting here looking at a Valentine quilt that I made, and I still haven't bound it. I hung this last year and the year before, shamefully, without binding it. So shame on me. That is not like me either. I almost always finish my projects. So this was a Camperbell pattern, and I did it on my Bernina, and the designs were all, well, it's just come out of the closet, so I don't have it all looking pretty, but I forget what it was called. Just, I don't remember. Anyway, I'll try to hold that up. Oh, I probably have to stand up. Okay, so we've got a little string of photos. There's a little bit of freestanding lace, and a little bit of piecing in the XOXO, and then some machine embroidery, and a little bit of, this is a vinyl. They do lots of fun embellishments, but I purchased this pattern after it had been released, and so the embellishment kit wasn't available, so I had to find the things to make my own embellishments, which I did. And it looks okay, but when you buy their kits and their embellishments, it looks a lot better. So I need to fluff it and iron it. But so that's the whole thing, and I still need to bind that. In the back is this Valentine heart print. So that'll have to be done this year before I hang it. So that's why it's out. And let's see. Well, about sewing, I did I think it was called Autumn Love by Lori Holt. I did that quilt with a group of friends, and we would meet weekly down at the local quilt shop and work on that. And I loved the pattern, and I loved the applique, but it was a lot of work, and I've got arthritis in my hands. Excuse me, and turning out all of those small shapes was just killer. So we worked on that quilt probably, 6 months at least, all of us. And then most all of us put it away. It was a little bit daunting. And you know, we wanted to move on to other things. So I put mine away too and kind of forgot about it. And then last year, I remembered I loved it and I wanted to hang it. and I wanted to display it. So I got it out and I said, I am finishing this. Whatever it takes, I'm finishing it. So I did. I finished that quilt and sent it off to be quilted. And I'm so glad I finished it because I absolutely love it. And that'll have to be, if you're a quilter, you probably know the quilt, but I'll share that at a later time. But at that point, I realized that doing the hand applique, the turning out, and I don't think I would call this hand applique. Hand applique is done where they take the tiny stitches by hand around each applique piece and adhere that to the quilt. And you know, I've done it before, but I don't do that. This was done where Lori Holt's version is she uses a piece of stabilizer on the back, and you turn it, you put a little X on the back side and you turn it out and use a tool to go around all the curves and shapes and poke it out and iron it nice and flat and then adhere it to your quilt. You can do it by hand or by machine, and most of us were using a buttonhole stitch by machine and doing that. And that's how I did mine too, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how I did mine with the buttonhole stitch. So, but the process of turning out those small shapes was so hard that I just, like, you know, all of us that were working on it just kind of put it away for a while. But I finished that quilt and I loved it. And then somewhere around that time, I started doing more and more machine embroidery and machine applique. So I had purchased my first Bernina from a friend of mine after I had found a little Bernina deco in a thrift shop that worked. And I found out that it was, you know, so old that you really couldn't purchase a lot of new things for it. I wanted to be able to purchase more designs and larger hoops, but it wasn't designed to accommodate larger hoops. But I learned to do my machine embroidery on that little deco, and boy, did it have a nice stitch. I did monogramming, and I did lots of towels and motifs and baby blankets and all sorts of things. But I was limited to the designs that were on the machine, which there were several, plenty, but dated. There weren't a lot of ones that I really would use. And then you can purchase, or in that time, they made little cards that you put down into the back of the machine, and that card had the designs for that, whatever you purchased, whatever theme it was. I purchased a nautical theme, and I had one that was monograms and letters, and I can't remember the other one, but I had 3, and it did give me a lot of choices to use the machine embroidery. But so I, in my search for more hoops and different things I could use and more cards, I wound up in the Bernina shop in Fullerton, and he said, you know, that you can find things on eBay once in a while, but you're not going to be able to, you know, really do a whole lot with this machine. And I wound up purchasing a floor model, which was a very low-end machine, entry to machine embroidery machine. And I kind of got a little bit took, I think, because it was sold to me as a machine that I could purchase designs off of the websites and upload those to my machine and pretty much make anything that my hoop size would accommodate. But that was not the case. The very first thing I did was sign up for a class, but I couldn't even do the class because my machine wouldn't upload the Kimberbell designs that the class was designed around. So I took it back to the place and I said, this is supposed to, you know, I'm supposed to be able to upload these designs and I can't do it. And they worked with it. And bottom line is I would have had to go through a whole big process on the computer. I wasn't going to do it, and I never did do it. So I was stuck with this machine. However, it was a good sewing machine, and I did sew with it quite a bit. And the machine had about 200 and some odd designs that were in the machine that I could stitch out. And I think I did every single one of those. And after a year or so, I'd really done everything that I could do. There was no more learning that I could do with that machine. And a friend of mine was getting ready to upgrade her Bernina, and I wound up buying hers. and it had a lot more options that I could do with machine embroidery. And so I ran that machine for a year or so, and I just had a ball, and I really was on fire for machine embroidery. I learned how to upload the designs myself and get them and transfer them, and um, all of the things. But then I was limited to, because the hoop size. I wanted bigger hoops, and I wanted to be able to do more. So that machine died after about a year, and they recommended that I just buy a new one because the money that I would have had to put into it wouldn't be good on that age machine. And so I went ahead and I did buy a new machine at that time. I think it was a 590, and I loved that machine, and I just thought, okay, this is probably, even though I would like bigger hoops, this is probably as far as I'm going to be able to go with the Bernina sewing machines, because they're a huge investment. And I really hadn't had any intention of getting another one until my friend called and said, you really should go look at the 790 Pros. They have a couple in the shop that they're selling and dealing, making a good deal on, because he needs to sell these. So I went in and looked at it, had no intention of buying it, and well, I shouldn't say that. I wanted to buy it, but I knew that it was very expensive, and I really had no real reason to. I had this pretty new 590, but I did go home and think about it and talk it over with my husband, and I did wind up buying that 790 Pro. And so I've had that now for probably, almost a year, and I can't see myself ever needing to upgrade from here, because I think this is pretty much, well, there's a brand new one that's been released that would be top of the line, and then the 800 series I think has a couple features that this doesn't, but this has everything that I could ever want on it for both sewing and machine embroidery. Most of what I do on this machine is machine embroidery, and I love it. I've got I can still buy some more hoops, but I've got the maxi hoop and the midi hoop and the 5x7, and then some smaller, and I have I think it's called the mega hoop, the long one that you can do borders on a quilt. And I've recently gotten into doing the machine embroidery on, or the machine quilting on my embroidery machine, where I've purchased some designs. I made some small Christmas tabletop quilts, and I had purchased a couple of different Christmas designs, and was able to do those. And then I kept working on learning how to do pinpoint placement, and learning how to, when I finished one portion of it and then I needed to do it again and rehoop my design and pick up my stitch at the exact point that I left off. And I was able to do that and learn that on my 790 Pro, and it's a pinpoint placement. So that's opened up a new world to me too, with doing the actual machine quilting myself on my own sewing machine rather than sending it to a long armor. I don't know that I'd tackle a very big one, but I'm thinking about tackling, I don't know if you can see, I've got the Lori Holt chicken salad quilt over here. Well, you can barely see it, over my shoulder. It's hanging on the quilt rack. I'm not sure what size that is. Probably a, oh well, it's pretty good size. It's probably a queen. So, but I might try to do that on my 790 Pro and do the continuous quilting designs on that. Not a very dense pattern, but just quilt. And that's all applique, but that didn't bother me so much because those are all chickens and the pieces are big. The small pieces were the feet, and those are bias tape. So there weren't a lot of really tiny pieces to turn. In fact, the wattle and the combs were the small pieces for that, but it wasn't terrible. So that was my last quilt that I did, and I need to machine quilt that. So anyway, so that's about it for this first one. I'll try to get this uploaded. And if somebody watches, maybe I'll come back and do it again. So we'll see. I'm trying to think, was there anything else that I wanted to say? I will do different themed things. I'll show you projects that I'm thinking about doing. I think Winnie wants to be on camera and things like that, and just see how it goes. So thanks, and hopefully I'll be back in a while. Thanks a lot. Happy New Year. Have a good day.